Alright, this is Grandfather. Now, I have to tell you something that might be a bit strange. Some of you might say weird. But, in fact, things are happening now to create a smoother path for you all to a more benevolent dimension for you all to live on. Some of you will now be seeing things that will look odd to you. Most of the time, these things will be portals. And there will be beings, light beings, purely benevolent beings, coming and going through these portals. Some of you might see a bright light moving through the air. Some of you might see something that you will believe more after the fact. Let me explain. And I'm not trying to convince you to believe it. But have you ever had that experience where you saw something just for a split second, but after it was no longer there, you still had the memory of it very clearly in your mind's eye? Many of you will have an experience like that happens so quickly that all you have left is that image in your mind's eye. Many of you will also talk yourself out of it and believe you imagined it, even though you don't, as a rule, ever have such an experience where you, quote, imagined it, unquote. But it will be coming to you, this idea of having imagined it, partly because of the culture you've been raised in that encourages you to be the same as everybody else. This is a challenge for many of you, I know. But I want to encourage you today to accept a responsibility that you didn't know you had. And that responsibility is to be different. It is not your job to be the same as everybody else, even if everybody else looks different from some group or other. But still, when you look at the big picture, they are still very much the same in appearance, maybe even in actions and behaviors. Accept the fact that you were created to be who you are, not who you are not. All right, I needed to say that because I know a lot of you are shy to be who you are. And many times when you are young, what you display as who you are may not be anything like what you display when you are older. Some of you may be artistic and don't know it because you haven't learned how to apply that yet. Some of you may be creative and inventive in unusual ways, and you don't know how to show that without other people thinking that you are weird. Others of you think of yourself as weird, and sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's enjoyable, and sometimes it's embarrassing. It won't get any easier when you're younger, but it will get easier soon. Meaning that even if you're a young person and you're struggling with being different, the pathway is being smoothed for you now. Many times by these light beings who come in and do things to smooth the path for individuals and even for groups. But other times, it is that dimension that is more benevolent is not only under its own motion, meaning it's moving in its own world, in its own way, but because so many of you have worked so long to help make things more benevolent for everyone in many different ways, that dimension is actually reaching towards you and needs the help of these light beings who will make the connections between all living beings on this planet and that dimension. It doesn't mean that everyone will all go to the same planet. It means that human beings will go to one planet, and many of the beings you love, such as dogs and cats and others like that, who are compatible with you, will go with you. But other beings who are not compatible with you, like mosquitoes and other animals that bite or cause disease, will go to their own place where they do not have to bite and cause disease and where they are actually quite benevolent. Many of them who are here now who are not benevolent are really struggling with that because it's not in their nature to be that way. Sharks are another example. Of course, not all sharks are violent and harm human beings, just some. And a good animal expert can tell you the difference. So, I'm spreading out a bit what I'm saying, but I want to tell you these things because 2012 is a turning point. It's not a turning point that's going to take you into some abyss where you will all simply disappear or go to some horrible place. It's not going to herald an invasion of terrible beings who will do things that you see only in science fiction movies. It is a turning point, all right. It's a turning point to get you solidly on that path to that more benevolent dimension, that dimension that's a safe and loving place, and where you, whether you're different or whether you're like everybody else, and that's how you are, can be safe to be yourself, and people will be happy with that. And if you're trying to be like others and you're not being yourself, people will say, "What's wrong? We like you just the way you are." So, covering a few different topics today, eh? But I have to speak about these things because I know many of you are still frightened about 2012. And many of you have unfortunately become somewhat attached to, and even in some cases addicted to, frightening yourself and frightening others about things that are not real. So, homework. I'd like you all, if you can, go on the internet to do this, or go to the video store and take something out. Try to find a scary movie made in the 1940s, because they weren't too scary then. All right? And I'd also like you to find a happy, funny movie made in the 1950s. As I say, a lot of you will be able to do this on the internet, but for those of you who are not having the internet available, then go to the video store or ask an elder to talk about something that's a little bit scary, but not real, meaning a story made up. Tell them it's important that it not be really scary, just a little bit. And then get somebody else to tell you a story that's happy and cheerful. Why? I want you to notice how you feel when you do this homework. If you are watching something or hearing a story that is funny, but you feel nervous, uncomfortable, and you want to glance at your phone and see if you have any new text messages. In short, if you are agitated or upset and cannot focus on feeling good, then know you might be addicted to what's frightening, or you might even be attached to it. I'm telling you this not to make you upset or angry. I'm telling you because my intention with these videos is to empower you. And sometimes to be empowered, you have to know what you are doing, even if it is something that is disempowering. Now, if you're watching an old semi-scary movie and you feel like it's funny, which you might very well feel, or you feel just slightly uncomfortable. The moment you feel slightly uncomfortable, stop watching the movie. But if it's funny, go ahead and watch it. It might be funny because it was scary then, but it isn't too scary now. What I'm asking you to do largely in this video today is to explore your feelings and see if those feelings are welcoming you into your present, or whether they are just making your life more difficult and more stressful. Pay attention to what you say to others. If you're saying things that are scary or unsettling, then consider saying something else. You don't have to keep bad news from people, but don't turn it into something that is worse. Meaning, well, you know what I mean. Saying this could happen and that could happen and so on. These are not times, even though you might think they are, that are meant to be frightening. These times are meant to be uplifting. So if you are attached to being frightened, you will have to learn what physical feelings you have in your body that indicate fright, and nervousness is one of them. It's all right to be nervous. Sometimes you're nervous before a good event, or you're nervous because you want something to happen. There's lots of reasons to be nervous. But if you're nervous because you're not keeping up on all the stuff that makes you frightened, then I think you need to take a good look at that and put yourself on a steady diet of funny movies, funny stories, and relaxing moments. Now you may think that that's not particularly important, but the more relaxed you are, the more likely you are going to be able to notice when something good is happening and it's something you might want to be involved with. I'll have more to say about these things in time, but I'm bringing it to your attention that these times are a lot about signs. And if you're attached to things that are uncomfortable or miserable or unhappy, you could easily miss the signs. But if you are as cheerful as you can be, optimistic, yes, and are able to be friendly and optimistic and safe with other people, or even with dogs and cats, for instance, your pets, you might find that you will be able to understand signs better. I will be talking to you more about signs pretty soon, but I'm talking to you about them now because I want to give you this homework so you can get ready to know what the signs are. But I will give you this much of an advance notice. The signs will be felt by you as happiness, cheerfulness, and loving, and the feeling of being loved for being exactly who you are. Those feelings will be present, and they're very similar to the feelings you have between lives when you're around your angels, your guides, and yes, Creator as well. Good life.